GitHub Copilot. What is GitHub Copilot? So basically it's a generative AI tool which has been accessible by Codex. It's an extension which has been promoted across various platforms like VS Code, JetBrains, NeoVim, etc. It enables code suggestions, generates codes for various different languages like Python, JavaScript, C, whatnot. So it's a collaborative effort with GitHub and OpenAI. It has always been called an AI programmer. It suggests code in real time. It has been trained on various public code on GitHub. It boosts productivity, supports clean coding, and also there are a couple of limitations such as integration issues and the need to know basic programming. So there are issues, but yet it still serves the purpose as a proper generative AI tool for software development. So these are a couple of code which was generated from GitHub Copilot. So how do you set this up? You just have to install Visual Studio Code, and in Visual Studio Code there is a Copilot extension. You need to go to the extension tab and just install it. Therein you need to still sign up with GitHub, and then with this particular extension it provides you a 60-day free trial, and afterwards it needs a paid version. And after that for proper functionality you just have to go into the settings in Visual Studio Code and set up the inline suggestions for GitHub Copilot, and then from there you're ready to code, right? So the views which you could see here is basically how it initiates in the platform and how you could start asking questions from it to get the relevant outcome. So how does GitHub help, right? So in this case we are trying to develop an application which is generating Fibonacci numbers, right? So in this stint what we do is we try to generate functions, optimize functions. In the code which is generated, it writes relevant comments. We are trying to create unit tests for testing and debugging, and also we want to try and refactor and understand what the code does. So this is how it was generated, and then this is the outcome from the Fibonacci series. So this is an optimized version of the code which is questioned, and I was able to get the outcome, and then again it was a similar outcome as that of the previous one. So we wrote a unit test as well from two different files into a given location, and then from therein we were able to get the relevant outcomes from that as well. So what are the best practices that Copilot supports? It does support clean coding and naming. It suggests relevant namings and meaningful function names. It also helps in proper structure and modularity, provides the relevant separation, and also breaks down the logic into smaller chunks. Commenting and documentation is pretty straightforward. Right there it auto completes and creates the relevant description of the function, and also it enables testing through relevant test cases, and also proper error handling is always in the forefront of its generation. So that is how Copilot functions, and we would like to show a live demo on how it had been actually it had been functioning in a real world setting. Hi, I'm going to take you through a walkthrough of how Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot could be used together, right? So the setup is pretty simple. You would have to install Visual Studio Code on your PC, and then go to extensions, go to GitHub Copilot, search for it, then basically you will require to install it, right? Since you see an uninstall because I've already installed it, and then you would also require a GitHub sign up on your profile, if you have created a GitHub profile for yourself, sign up, and then you would use for 60 days a free version, and then perhaps then a paid version as well. Also make sure you go here into settings and set the inline completions feature. It's already automatically set up, but then that would be of best interest. Right, so now what we are going to do is we are going to create a Fibonacci function using GitHub Copilot. We are going to use an optimize function as well, create an optimize function. So I'm going to ask it to write me, what I basically did was Control I, right? So I mean I could escape this, and then when I press Control I can ask GitHub Copilot to do whatever the prompt for me, right? So when I click on GitHub, so Control I ask it to write me Fibonacci function, and optimize function, and call it in main use. So I prompt like this, and then it creates me this particular function, and then I tell it to run as accordingly, and then I can accept the solution which is being given, and it had created me two different functions and a main where I could call it when I run, right? So I can save this code and then run this Python file, right? So then I'm going to say a none, I come here and then I say 10. It would give me the recursive function as well as the optimized code, right? Right. So I want to write a unit test for these two functions. So I'm going to prompt it to write me a unit test for these two functions, right? So write me a unit test for both of these functions, and it would write me a unit test for these functions as accordingly. I accept the solution and I save it in a file apart from unit testing, unit outcomes, apart from unit testing. So you don't save it as unit test, and then when you run this, it says it successfully ran 2 tests. So this is how GitHub Copilot runs across creating multiple functions, inline comments, relevant unit tests to achieve the relevant outcomes. And you could also, to prove you that you can put error correction, error handling as well. So then I am going to Control I, add error handling. And it does my error handling as well. So I can still run this function accordingly and then get the outcome as expected.